The creation of models of excellence, and particularly I work in corporations, and the kind of behavioral models that we create are consequential. They have an impact on bottom line. And so when we do this, most of the time, the clients have already been through the route of looking at psychologists and bringing in organizational psychologists and doing various kinds of statistical activities, but they always ask the wrong questions. It's not about what everybody's doing and how many people are introverts or extroverts or any of that nonsense. We're looking for the behavior that is exceptional, so far out of the ordinary that it's almost you'd want to take them out, which is another statistical trick that they do when you have outliers, is you take them out because they will skew the curve. That's not what we do with the methodology. We hone in on those people who have singular and unique capabilities. That's what we're looking for. The things that are out of the ordinary and that are exceptional. Because if you want to create a real difference that makes a difference, you're not going to find it going hand to hand, trying to shift the median a tiny bit. And you certainly aren't going to find it by going to the low end and trying to support those people and help them to get up to average on some days. To create the biggest changes, you have to take what is unique and exceptional and find a way to make it possible for other people to join them there. What the model is about is it's about how do you get the people who aren't doing this to be able to do it. Not some hypothetical or theoretical abstraction about what you think may be going on in some abstract realm. The model is about how to get from where they are to what your exceptional example is able to do. And you don't have to create models for things that have already been coded. You don't have to create a model for something that may be nice or may be good, but is a fairly ordinary workaday thing. Many times when people ask me about modeling some situation or other, they've already been coded sufficiently. The processes have already been created and made explicit enough for others to be able to follow it. The time when you create a model is when you've got something that is such an exception, and people are going, that's a one-off. I have no idea what's going on there. You don't have to have an idea of what's going on. We have to have an idea of what they're creating, what the results of their process are, rather than what we imagine they're doing on the inside on a good day. We look at the results that they're creating, and then we find a way for that to be transferred. In the process, we might discover that they're doing something really cool with how they sort through data, or where they sort through data, or what those data sets are. There might be some really cool stuff in terms of strategies and sequences of behavior. All of that may occur, but it's not strictly necessary in order to create a model. You see, you have to think through what you want this work for, what you want it to do, before you start launching in with whatever it is you presume the modeling process is. As such, the tools that you're going to use and the processes that you're going to use in creating the model may be different from situation to situation. In many cases, you won't use things like strategies or metaprograms or whatever the presumed necessities are in terms of NLP. And one thing I can tell you is that a list of metaprograms and some notes about strategies and a few bits on submodalities, that's not a model. First of all, strategies itself is a model. It's a model of human behavior. Taking the 5 or 6 senses, depending on how you want to cut those up, and say, hang on, all right, so in the somatosensory cortex in the brain, we have overlaps of these different sensory areas. Some of the areas are bigger and better represented than others. But what if we said, let's make each of the sensory inputs equivalent, same size. And we looked instead at the sequence and the change in sequence of representational system that somebody was using. What can we do with that? And what they ended up with is a very tight, very neat, very elegant little tool that can give you some, make a quick sketch of things and give you hints about how to proceed. But one thing it does not tell you, it doesn't tell you what the person is doing. People, other people, and you don't have strategies. They don't exist in the world. They're a cognitive tool. They're a tool that you take on in order to change what you're doing with your perceptions. So consequently, when we're modeling and creating a model of something, we may not know what sort of tool we're going to be choosing before we get into the project. Maybe, we're quite a ways along in the project before we know which tools we're going to have to use in order to modify our own perceptions and points of view. This is one of the things that when I'm teaching consultants and when we're mapping out situations, one of the things you have to do is you have to keep your own axioms, your own assumptions, and your own points of view represented within the model. Where are you in the model? Who says? Who's making the decisions? In terms of the meta model, this is back with, in terms of how we work with it, with the loss performative question. We're always keeping that point in our awareness that the points of view, the perspectives, the assumptions that are being made had to be made at a specific time, a specific place, with specific things going on in the context. They aren't free-floating in reality. And you have to be ready to just take an assumption, take it out, and throw it away as soon as you discover that it's either over-coloring what it is that you're doing, or it isn't functioning properly. I think that's part of the problem when people say, I can't do X, Y, or Z with hypnosis or with NLP or whatever. They're clinging to something far too tightly, far too axiomatically, and refusing to throw out what you can't get to work. It's one of the main sources of trouble that you can get into. So when we're modeling, one of the things that we have to do is we have to set aside our preferences, our biases, and those filters that we hold in place. And that takes effort, that takes work. So it's one of the first things that you have to do. It's really important that you develop and refine your ability to, through the vulgarism, STFU, shut up on the inside. Shut up, place your attention on the outside. There's nothing of the outside in there. The nervous system's operationally closed. Nothing from the outside gets inside. There's nothing inside your experience that you're going to be able to tell the universe it should be, and then it will happen. You have to learn how to sit and observe and allow things to go exactly as they're going, without commenting, just noticing. First that happens, then that happens, then that happens. Oh, look, there it's happening again. And look at that. It's following the same pattern. Before you can track, you have to be able to observe. And that observing comes from being quiet, allowing things to be as they are. And then you can start creating ways to track what you're observing. But it starts from quiet. It starts from silence. It starts from you going, I don't have to push anything onto this situation. I'll let that come to me.